Alright guys, so here I am in SketchUp. In this tutorial we are going to go through and using SketchUcam we are going to create some control horns for our foamies. We're going to cut them out and we'll show you how to do the entire process. So here we have our SketchUcam toolbar. We set up our parameters here. We're going to set up our spindle speeds fine. I'm going to slow the feed rate down to 40 because we're cutting a harder material. We're going to be cutting garlite, which is like a G10 type of fiberglass board. You could use plywood if you want. It's up to you guys. This is going to be 16th inch thick, 0.0625. And as far as our inside outside overcut, this is how far you want the bit to go through the material beyond the 100%. If it was at 100%, it would go right to the end. We usually make that a little bit more. I'm going to set it up to 120. The bit diameter is a 16th inch bit. We're going to use a 16th tile grout removal bit or a laminate bit. You can get them at Lowe's. Dremel makes them, I believe. So we'll put in 0.625 for the 16th inch bit. Tab width, I'll make 1/8 inch tabs, 0.125, and these are the bridges that'll hold the part in place as it's being cut. And this is the percentage, 50%. That should be fine. The safe travel is how high you want your bit to be as it moves across the material, and we're going to set ours up for 1/8 inch. That's fine. As for the safe width and safe length, it depends on the size of the material you're using. And since I'm going to be using this garlite, I'm going to say it's going to be 12 by 24. It's 24 inches long by 12 inches wide. I usually go a little bit less just to make sure, especially, you know, you don't want the bit to ride off the end. So I'll make it 11 or 11.5 or something like that by, let's say, 22. That way I'm sure to be in the material the whole time. I'm going to check overhead gantry because we're cutting from the top down with the flat printer MK3. Let me bring this up a little bit. You can see we have generate 3D code, but this is not a 3D file. We also have generate multipass. This one we do want to check. And the multipass depth that we're going to set up, let's see, we'll try to get it. It won't end up in 2 cuts. It'll probably end up in 3 cuts because what will happen is even if we put this at a 32nd, which is a half of a 16th, what will happen is it'll look at the file and then it'll see this overcut percentage and it'll say, well, I'm not all the way through yet. So it doesn't matter. It just gives it one more pass and actually does a good job. So I'm just going to leave it right there, 0.3, I'll put 125, but 0.313, that's close. That's a 32nd basically. We don't want to generate the 3D code, so we don't worry about the step over percentage for the 3D code. Comment or remark, control horn, foam, airplane, or foamy. And Phlatboyz LLC. Now the rest of this stuff, as far as comments, you don't have to worry about. If somebody downloads this file and goes to cut it, all this information will already be in there in a sort of a text block at the top of the code that gets created for the cut file. So they'll know what size material to use by looking at that, and they'll know the safe length and the safe width. So that looks good. I'm going to go down here. You can't see the button, but down below here there's an OK button, so I'm going to go ahead and hit that. Okay, so what it's done now is it's resized our material, our safe cutting area, to 22 by 11. And so what we'll do is just go in here, and at this point, actually I'm going to leave that to the side right now. I'm going to draw a square, and then I'm using my orbit tool or your middle mouse button. Go to the camera view, make it perspective mode, and we know that we're going to be going through either 6mm or 1/4 inch foam. So once again, I'm using the extrusion tool. I'm going to bring this up, doesn't matter what amount, I'll click once, 0.250, and then hit enter. And you can see here, down here in the distance, it says 0.250, it's 1/4 inch. So that'll represent our foam. And now we want to draw a control horn. So I'm just going to make another square. It's easier for me to draw on a square, a plane, instead of trying to guess to where it's at. I'm going to go up to camera and put on parallel projection, because I want to click on this icon here that allows me to look straight down on top of the whole file. Okay, so I'm looking at the file, I'm looking at this face that we've created, and I'm just going to go through here and kind of design what I think would be a nice looking control horn. I'll start with a rectangle, and then I'll bring it out a little bit, and probably curve that, and curve this. And last but not least, I'll put a curve here. Now I'll just go through and delete these extra lines that I don't need. Okay, so that looks alright, but it's not exactly what I was after. So I'm going to go through with my move tool here, and I'm just going to grab and move some of these lines around just to give it a better look. Actually, I'm hitting Control Z. I'm going to undo that. Let's see if I can grab that whole arc. That looks pretty cool. Alright, something like that. Now, one thing that we want to do is put a little bit extra here, because, but not on this side, I don't think. We won't know until we actually design the model, but I'm going to go through and I'm going to put the holes, and I'm going to type in, if you look down here, the radius is actually a 1/16 of an inch, but we're using a 1/16 inch bit, and so what we're going to end up doing is actually drilling this straight down with the drill option up here. So what we want to do is, we could leave it that big because this circle is just a representation, but just to keep things uniform, I'm going to click on this, and then right after that I'm going to type in 0.03125 and hit enter, and that gives us a better idea of this is actually a 1/16 inch hole. If I click on this, you'll see the diameter is a 1/16, which is exactly what we're after. Now we can, using the select tool, we can grab that, and if you hover over an edge and then move towards the center there, it'll pick the center. Or you can actually select this outside line, right click on it, and go point at center. That only works on circles that are not broken. And then we can just select it and move these in if we want to. Okay, so that's sort of where I want it. Actually, I think I'm going to go a little bit further, and we'll see how that works out. Alright, so that looks good. I don't see the purpose of having a whole bunch of holes there. You either like it there or not. This one's probably not even necessary and probably will never get used, but it's there. So we'll leave it. I'm going to go through and just try to clean up these edges a little bit more. Sometimes it actually helps to do a file like this larger, just because, let me see here. Now you can see I just deleted that face, but sometimes it does help to do it larger. I'll show you a little trick I do for this. I'm trying to get this more uniform. I can delete this whole edge that I created, oops, except for that one, and then go through here with my circle tool. Since I know where the center is, I can bring that out, sort of like that. I'll bring a line from here to the highest point. Get rid of these, and now it's more uniform. It looks nice. Okay, so we have that done. Now I'm going to take that and just select it and bring it out here. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this rectangle. Just select and delete. And I am going to select this whole thing, and I'm going to right click on it. Actually, you can't see it, it's off the screen, but let me see if it'll work like this. I'll select it, I'll right click on it, and I'm going down. You can't see it, it's off the screen, but if you have SketchUcam installed, you'll see at the bottom it says Flat Edge in a context menu, and you can pick what's called Flatten Selected Edges. So I just clicked on that, and you'll notice what happens here if you orbit around. You've basically flattened that down on the 0 plane, and it automatically added the face as well. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to delete these holes because they will be holes. Select the whole thing, and then I'm going to right click on it and make it a component. Hit create, orbit around. I'm going up to camera and I'm picking perspective, and I'm going to use my move tool. I'm going to hover around this edge until I find the red pivot handles, and click on one and go up to where it's 90. If you look down here, it'll tell you what angle you're at. But there we are at 90. We'll click again. That looks good. I'm going to grab an edge, and I'm just going to place it on the face there somewhere. Actually, I'll put it right on this edge like that, and take a look at it, because this is what it would sort of look like. As a matter of fact, I think what I'll do is I'll draw what would be a hinge line. Let's say that this was our elevator. Okay. So I have basically my hinge line there. I'm actually going to draw, I'm going to go down here 50% of this, and I'm going to draw an angle here like it would be, and I'll extrude that over. Something like that. So that would sort of be like our hinge line. The only problem is it's upside down. So I'm going to select this whole thing. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to hit make a group, or make component, create. I'm going to flip it over with the handle using the move tool, and I can still see it's there. And just so I know where it's at, I hover over this so you get a reference point, and then I'm going to go straight across on the green axis. And I just drew that line so I could see where I'm at and see how this control horn is going to work. So I've selected my control horn. I'm going to move over here. You want your pivot point directly over the center of this hole. So I'm going to take and draw a line straight up from here. Actually, I can go up, and then I can pick this guide point and kind of get my, I should be able to get my center from that. If not, I'll draw a line from it. Okay, so it's not clicking, so I'm just going to draw a line over there, delete those, and now what will happen is I'm going to take this control horn design to make sure it functions like we want it to, and that pivot is directly over the pivot of the hinge. I'm going to move it out like that. Now you can see it kind of messes up our design a little bit, but that's alright. We can easily go in there and fix that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that now. Put another arc in here, and I'll reverse the faces so we can see what it looks like. You can see that it completely made the whole thing a face, even these. And you can draw a line on here and bring them back. Just draw on any of the line segments of those circles. I'll delete these. Okay, so now what will happen is when we put our control rod here, let me delete this, to pull this hinge, it'll actually pivot where it's supposed to pivot, right here, over top, directly over top of that pivot point. And when we put our spike on, which is what we're about to do now, it won't be in the way of the actual hinge. angle. So I'm going to double click on this control horn. I'm going to use my pencil tool. I'm going to find the center. I'm going to bring it down like this. And once you do that, what you've done is you've split this line into two separate lines now. And each one from here to here has its own new center. Very useful. So I'm going to click on that new center, bring it down. And over here, find the new center here. Bring it down. And what we'll do is find the center of these side lines. Bring those down. Delete any extra lines that you don't need, even that one. And what I think we'll do, there's two ways we can go about this. We can leave that spike like that, which would be fine, and it would work its way into the foam. As a matter of fact, we could even put a couple grabbers on here, so like a barb, so once it goes in one way, it can't come out the other. Let's try that. I'm going to go back and draw a center line here. And actually I'm going to redraw all these lines so I can use their centers. Okay, so what I'll do is something like this. And I'm not sure if our 16th inch bit is going to be able to do it. But we'll see. Actually, I'm looking up there at the top. I don't think it's going to be able to. Maybe something like this would work though. And well, oops, let me delete that. What I'm going to do is I'm double clicking on this. I just wanted to select this area. Using my move tool and then clicking on the control key, you can see it turns this plus sign on and off. And that allows us to basically select, or whatever we have selected, we can copy it. And I'm moving it right along one of the axes, which was the red axis. And I'm going to say flip. I'm going to right click on it and flip it along the red axis. And you can see it basically mirrors it. I'll bring it back over, connect it, go back to my eraser, get rid of these lines. And now when we push this in to the foam, it's going to have a hard time coming out, especially if we use some hot glue. Okay, so that part's done. That looks good, but remember it's only a 16th inch thick, so it's not really the best candidate for staying upright and whatnot. We need to add a base to it. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm really going to find this center again. I'm going to draw out a ways. I don't want to go too far. I'm just kind of eyeballing this right now. I'm lining up with that center. You can't really see it, but it's on the opposite side of this wall here. And you can see maybe that it's giving me this green reference line. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to copy this part a couple times. Alright, I'm finding that center, and I'm going to round these edges off a little bit. Let me just double click on this, and we're going to make a copy of it. Once again, control with the move tool, move it along an axis, and move it out a ways so you're not hitting anything, and then flip along that axis. Bring it back together, which joins them automatically, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to double click that, and I'm going to move it along this axis, the green, and I'm going to flip it along the green and join those. Oops. And then I'm just going to double click on the, or triple click on the whole thing. I'm going to, so it's all selected, right click on it, and what we'll do is we'll say make a component. And that looks good. Now, when we glue this down with this plate on here, that's going to make all the difference in the world in holding this thing where it should be. Not sure about these arrow wedges yet. It might work, it might not. As a matter of fact, it's really small, and I don't think it will work. So what I think I'm going to do is double click on this. I'm going to change this up a little bit, because I'm thinking what we could do is when we use the flat printer to actually make our elevators or rudders, and we know we're going to use something like this, we can take the drill bit and just cut a line like that, a 1/16 inch line, which would be perfect because it allows us to push this down in there. So it doesn't need to be spiked or anything. So I'm just going to go through, I'm going to bring this down, get rid of this arrow altogether, and it'll strengthen this whole thing a little bit. As a matter of fact, I think we could even get away with making it a little bit wider. Bring it straight and get rid of this side of the arrow. And if you delete a face like I just did, just draw across one of those lines and you should be able to get it back. And if you start getting a model that gets complicated, you can see it's like blocking my view, this plate that I made. I'm just going to right click on it and I'm going to go to hide. And now I can sort of see better what I'm doing. And I can go back, I can hide this too. And I can actually say, okay, well here's the problem. I got a line here. And I'm deleting that. Okay, now we have a face. It was hard to see because it was the wrong color, but I'm going to hit reverse faces so it's easier to work on. I'm going to put a line across here. I know that axis line is in the way a little bit, but that will separate this bottom block, and we want that because we want to copy that, bring it over, something like that. See what that looks like. That's actually, in my opinion, too big. So I'm gonna, using the center lines again, I'm going to go through and cut those down a little bit. Now I'm going to copy this block, bring it over, see what that looks like. That's a little better. Alright, so I just deleted that, and the reason why is I want to add a rounded edge here, and whoops, I want them to be uniform, so I want to make a copy of them, which is what I'm going to do with the move tool. Just grab that edge using control, flip along the red, and bring them back, connect them together. Okay, now a lot of times that looks pretty good, and this notch will hold onto our plate, which is what we're after. A lot of times you see there's the guys will put they'll put holes in here where the glue is held. So let's do that too. That'll help. So we'll click on that. We'll put 0.03125, and that'll give us a true diameter of the 1/16. Bring this up a little bit, and that, what'll happen is when you put hot glue on there and push that in there, the glue will kind of seep through that hole and connect and kind of lock it in place, you know. We can get rid of this line now, so it's one solid piece. Let's draw our lines on here. Our control horn, once we're happy with it, which I say this looks fine, you know, you never really know about something like this until you prototype it and actually cut it out. One of the things I'd like to do is bring this out a little bit more, give myself a little more of a foot there, and I think I'll do the same thing back here. That's actually too much. Okay. Delete all these excess lines. That looks good. Okay, so we're happy with that, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through and create the 3D model of that simply by extruding it out a 1/16 of an inch, which is what I'm going to do now using an extrusion tool, or push pull as they call it. I'm pulling that out, and you can already see down here the distance is is changing, and I wanted a 16th because we're using 16th inch material. So that'll represent our control horn complete. And I like it. It looks pretty good. Okay, so let's go up to View, and we'll go to, go to Edit and go to Unhide, and then hit All, and that'll bring back the parts that we had hidden. And actually, I'm going to re-hide this this elevator that we have. Let's see. Let's go up to Hide. There. Now we want to line our centers off now because we moved this out a 1/16 of an inch. So we want to find a point where we can line that back up, and you can see it says midpoint in component and turns purple. So we know we're aligned with that. We could turn on X-ray mode up here and kind of look through the part if we need to as we're working on it. Because what's going to happen here, I'll tell you what we need to do. Actually, we'll select that, and using the Move tool, I'm going to click on this and bring it down, and you'll notice the axis I'm bringing it down on is the blue axis. It's important. Just bring that down a 1/16, which you'll see in the length there. If you can bring it down any length you want, as long as you're on the blue axis. You can see I'm way out of here. But if I click and I hit 0.0625, hit enter, that'll be a 1/16 from here to here. And you can double check that using the measurement tool, which it is. Okay, or you can just draw a line on there and look down here in your length, and you'll see, yep, that's a 1/16. Okay, what we're going to do now is go through and create the hole that the control horn is going to slip into for this foot. And so we'll double click on this, and oops, I didn't mean to select that face. It doesn't matter, but using the pencil tool and locking to, well, I'll start right here. I'm just going to work my way around. Make sure that your axes are lining up, staying on the axis like it should. And get used to using your middle mouse button as the orbit. It makes life so much easier. You don't have to switch tools. It's nice. Learn all the shortcuts you can. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to click out here in the white, and I'm going to actually right click on the control horn itself, and I'm going to hit hide. Okay, now that that's hidden, I'll go through and I can edit this foot and just get rid of all these excess lines we don't need. And one of the things we have to realize is we're using a 1/16 inch bit, and you'll notice if I use my measurement tool here, this is a 1/16 inch. So what we have to do actually is just put a single line here and route straight down that single line. Okay, let's say this represents the tip of our bit. If we go through, and I'm going to put this right on the center of that line, and I'll show you something interesting. A lot of times, like, I'm trying to find that center and it doesn't want to lock on there, but if you put the X-ray on, no problems. Okay, so if you look here from underneath, if this was our bit, it wants to cut through to create this part, and also it's going to cut back and forth like this. But you'll notice if I use this line and I go all the way over to where the center of the bit would be, stopping on that line, like right here, our hole becomes bigger because we never took into account half of the bit's width. So we have to think about that and basically make sure that our line is pulled back half of the bit's width. So you can see if I go through here and I select a line from here to here, if you look down in the length, you can see it says it's basically a 32nd. So if I clicked on that, and let's say I got rid of that, and we can get rid of these lines too because they're not representing anything anymore. I'll find my center. Now it will cut like it's supposed to. But I always like to add a little bit extra. So I'm going to bring those lines back. Actually, let me show you what that looks like again with the lines there. you could see, okay, now it would work. It would line up like it's supposed to. I like to add just a little bit more so we have some room to play with there. So I'm going to cut that in half again. I'm going to make that my line. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Now normally, you know, we're making this a little overly complicated. It wouldn't be this complicated. You would easily do this in your head. It wouldn't be that big of a deal. So now what will happen, here's our bit. And you can see, yes, it's going to cut over that line, but that's okay. And it'll cut over that line a little bit that way, and that's okay too. I'm going to delete this bit. And then when we bring in, let me click out here in the white area somewhere. And I'm going to go view, or what is it? Edit, unhide all, or last. And you can see, okay, that's where our control horn is going to be, but the actual cut line, the center line cut that we're going to put in there will be right there. I'm going to hide that control horn again real quick because we need to get rid of this square box. All we are concerned with is this line. And I'm double clicking on there so I can select the face, and I'm going to extrude that down 1/16 for our foot. Now we'll unhide last, and we'll bring this up to meet right here on this corner. So you bring that down till you see an X usually, because that's where that part intersects, and then bring it straight up on that axis. Now you super glue that together in Garlight, you got a nice little control horn. You could make it bigger, you can modify it any way you want. As a matter of fact, I already see that I'd like to bring this hole down a little bit more. I think it's too high. Sometimes, like right now, if I'm trying to grab this, it wants to jump all over the place. So a lot of times what you can do is just grab a line after you have the part selected. Sometimes you can get away with that. I actually, it's not doing what I want there. I want to go halfway. I want to go halfway between there. I want the center of that hole to be kind of centered between here. See if I can show you between this center. So whether it's going to let me or not, I don't know. It gets kind of tricky when you're working in 3D because you can find the center for this one, or you can find the center for the back one. And we want the center for the front one here. So if I wanted to, I could close that hole off. There, I got the center, and I'm just going to bring that up to there. Get rid of those new lines that I created. And that looks good. Now let's bring back our hinge system and see what it looks like. We'll go to Edit, Unhide All. And I'm going to select both of these using Control. You can see the Control. If I select one or the other, but if I hit Control and select, I can select them both. I'll right click and make that whole a component, the whole selection. Then we'll go through and we'll lift this up. Let's look for the intersection right there. Bring that straight up. And this is kind of a cutaway view of what it would look like in there. Now what's happened, you'll notice, is all of a sudden we're kind of far away from where we used to be. And the reason why is because now we've added a 1/16 of an inch there for our foot. So I'm going to select this whole thing. I'm going to bring it down to meet the bottom of the foam. Straight on that axis. And that looks good. That sets up our control horn. We got our pivot point where it should be. Our slice is not going to affect the angle cut of our hinge. So that looks really good. We'll bring this over into the part a little bit and see what it looks like in there. It looks good. So in the design, what we would do, I'll hide this. So our bit would do a straight cut like that, but of course a bit's a 1/16 inch wide. So the cut would actually look like that. And you can see, we can see all the way through. And let's go back and unhide the control horn so we can see it. Turn on X-ray mode, and I can see, I can line that up with that hole. Now I just guessed at that hole size, so now I'm going to go through and actually line it up with it. Something like that. When I moved that, the control horn came down, so let's bring that back up. 16th. And now, this is a 3D representation of exactly what it would look like once it's been cut. And that looks pretty good. And a lot of times, you could add another foot under here if you wanted to make it extra strong, but I found that it's not necessary. Those little plastic ones work fine, and these should work fine as well. Okay, so at this point we have our control horn model represented on a hinge system, and our next move is to actually convert that into a cut file. So let's go ahead and we'll grab our control horn, and I'm just going to, using the move tool, I'm going to hit control so I can copy it. I'll bring it out, and I'm just going to explode this because you remember we made it up of two different components. So I'm going to select the actual control horn itself, not the foot, and I'm going to, using the rotate tool, I'm going to look for the handle. When I find it, I'll rotate it over so it's nice and flat. And at this point, I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to right click and hit explode, and then I'm going to click again, and I'm going to go down, and once again you won't be able to see it, but off the screen you'll see the SketchUcam flat edge context menu. You click on that and you'll go to flatten selected edges, and you'll see what it's done is it brought it down completely flat on the 0 plane. Now our center hole points, they don't move, they didn't move, so I'm going to select them and delete them. We don't need them anymore anyway. So I'm just going to select both parts, and I usually turn on X-ray mode at this point. I select an edge and move my parts over by the safe cutting area somewhere so that I can lock onto a point and know that I'm even with it, and then I bring it up along the axis just to get it in there. Now you can see as we were working, I must have accidentally deleted some of the safe cutting area. Well, that's no big deal. You just go back up to the SketchUcam toolbar and go down and hit at the bottom here, which you can't see, it's off the screen, but you hit OK, and now our lines will be back and our safe cutting area is ready to go. Okay, now would be a good time to save your work. So make sure you go up, File, Save As, and save your work. Mine's already been saved as a control horn, so I can just go through and save as I go now, any changes that I make. Okay, so we have our parts are laid there flat. I can turn off the X-ray mode so it's solid again. And at this point you want to kind of nest your parts and just get them to where you're not wasting a lot of material. So I'm going to turn camera parallel projection on and look from straight down. You see we're looking right down on top of it. And I'm just going to double click on this particular part, and I'm going to temporarily make it a component. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Now make sure on this particular part, that center line that we made, you can't really select it by triple clicking, so you need to do a left drag and select it all. Now I'll go ahead and right click and hit make a component, create. There. Now what I can do is, a component's nice because I can hit control for my move to make a copy. Anything I do in this component will be reflected in its counterpart. If I put a line like this, it's got a line. You can see anything you do here will show up here, and they're basically twins. So let me get rid of that. So this is good because I want to go through and I want to use the handles to rotate and just kind of line these up the best that I can to cut these out and save as much space as I possibly can. A lot of times you can use the reference lines to give you a good even position. Now remember, you're using a 16th inch bit, and you have to leave a little bit of material between the cuts. You don't want to get too close, or they'll just fall off there. So I might actually stack these. I think it'd be better in the long run. I'll delete this. And to be honest, I can even bring this over a little bit more, then I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so that looks good. I got a little bit of material between our cuts. I'm going to bring this up just a hair more. Okay, they look good. Save my work. Alright, so at this point you can kind of zoom out using your mouse wheel, and my gosh, you could get a lot of control horns on here if you wanted to. I'm actually going to explode these. Okay, at this point we're going to go through and start assigning our SketchUcam flat code that will allow our flat printer to cut these parts out for us. And one of the things I was thinking about earlier in the video, under the SketchUcam parameters, I had set up under multipass a depth of 32nd. But I'm thinking, since it's going to cut 3 cuts anyway because of my overpass cut, I might as well kind of get them a little more even and set this up for like a 64th. And once again, you can't really see it, but I'm hitting OK at the bottom here. And just double check that it took it. And it broke it down to 0.156, which is fine. So just hit OK. Okay, so at this point now we're ready to work the tools. And the first tool we're going to use is the drill tool. And that's this tool right here. You can go into the help file here and it tells you all about what each tool does. Put a drill point right in the center where we want it, right there. So you basically line it up and center. And what I've done is I've lined it up with the top center and the side center, and that'll give you my middle center. And what will happen is, since we have generate the multipass, it'll actually peck its way down through the material 3 times until it's all the way through 16th inch. I'm going to do the same thing for each one of these drill holes. I don't even need to work on this part. I just need to work on one of them, and then I'll copy it and rotate it. So we'll do that. Alright, so now we have 3 drill points it's going to drill through. That'll be its first thing that it does. It doesn't matter what order you assign it to, it'll automatically do these first within this group. So our next one that we want to do is called the outside cut tool. This is the outside cut tool. You can see here it shows you, as you hover over the face of the control horn, it shows you exactly how far it's going to offset that. And of course we're using a 16th inch bit, so in order to cut along this line, it needs to cut out here where you see the red line, because it'd be half of the bit's width. So we'll click that, and once you do that, the line turns orange, and you can see that it even creates a new face in here. And that's our new outside cut. So the next thing you want to do is add a tab, which is this icon here. You click on it, you can see you can go around the edges here, and it has like a green bar that follows it. And that bar is basically going to be a bridge that we set up underneath our parameters earlier, where it says tab width 1/8 of an inch. So the tab width is going to be 1/8 when it can be, except on corners, where you might have to add a couple to make it wider. And also it's going to be 50% of the material depth. So what it's going to do is cut a trough, but it's going to leave 50% of the material in here. When the bit comes around, it'll leave a little bit in here. And try to put it in an inconspicuous area where, first of all, you can easily get to it with a razor knife. I'm just going to put it, I have to put it on the top here basically. And I only need one. The material is really strong material, so we're going to have a piece of foam underneath of it, so it's not going to fall through. The only worry is if the vacuum tries to pull it out, so might end up having to add two. We'll see. Okay, so I'm back on my selection tool. The bridge is no longer highlighted, but you can see it's in green here. I'm just going to select this whole control horn, and using the move tool, hit the control key. I'm going to bring it over, and temporarily I'm going to right click on it and make it a component, just so I can easily grab it and spin it. I could use the protractor tool and do it, but this just makes it easier for me. Alright, now remember, we're looking at this line here is your center line, and it's going to be half the width of the bit. So your bit is that wide. And remember, same thing over here. You have to keep that in mind, because the actual space between these two distance is the only thing that's going to be left holding these parts in place. So you might want to leave a little bit more room. Okay, now I'm going to explode this, and there we have it. We have our bridge in there, we have our drill points, everything looks good there. Let's move on to these. Once again, we only need one, so I'm going to delete this other one. And first thing we want to do here, remember the width of the bit, we basically want to do a center line cut. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to find my center line cut icon, which is right here. And once I select that, if you look down here, there's a depth percentage. And we want to make sure that we're cutting all the way through the center line cut. So using the arrow keys, I'm going to go through, and I can cycle through default depth percentages. But I can also type 110% to make sure it goes all the way through, and hit enter. It brings up our percent sign. Now if I hover over that line, it kind of looks like the tab tool, but the actual cursor looks different. I'll click on that, and it becomes light green. Now I know that that's a center line cut. The bit will go straight down, and it'll cut 110% through that material, the thickness of the material, and it will make a nice hole through there. Okay, the only thing left to do now is an outside cut. So we use the outside cut icon, click on it, and one more thing is to add our tabbing. So we're going to put a tab there. Might have to come back and add a couple tabs. We'll see how that goes. Okay, we'll take this, and using control and move, I'm going to copy it and bring it over. Make sure we leave enough room between them. And you might find later that there was plenty of room, and you could even move them closer to, nest the parts closer. At this point, we are ready to generate the code for this file. Okay, so to generate the code, you want to click on the green icon here. It'll open up a save dialog, and you can hit, I've got control horn typed in here, and that's fine, and I'm saving it to my desktop. I'm just going to hit save. You'll see output file stored. Hit OK. And if you've downloaded another plugin on the platform called Phlatboyz, you can click on that now, and it'll actually bring up a window that'll show you what the file, what the toolpath will look like. Here's the code that was generated, and basically it's a text file with XYZ coordinates telling the machine where to be at what time, like longitude and latitude. And here's the setup at the top here will tell you, tells you the bit diameter, the feed rate, material thickness, overhead gantry. This is all the stuff that we put in here when we set up our parameter. And then it goes through and tells the machine where to be at what time. But if you hold down, once again, the middle mouse button, you can rotate the Phlatboyz code. And you can actually look and see that we are generating actually 4 cuts to get through, which is going to take a little bit longer. So maybe we should make the thickness a little less. Alright, so let's close this. This file is just a temporary viewer. Once you save G-code, you can go through and open it and look at it. It's very nice. But let's close that right now. So we need something like a 3/64. And if you guys don't have a chart, grab one off the net. It basically just gives you the decimal equivalent of a fraction. I can glance over and say, what's between a 16th and a 32nd? Well, it's 3/64. Definitely grab one of those. They're very helpful. Alright, let's go back up here, and so our multipass depth is a little too deep. So I'm going to bring that down and put in 0.03. Let's just try that. And we'll hit OK. And then we'll generate the code. We'll replace it. Okay, let's go up to plugins and look at the code that we just created using plot G code. And if you look, it's better. It's a little bit better. We could actually do a little bit better than that, like 295 or something like that, 294. Let's try that real quick. I'm going to go back into parameters. So 0.028. Let's try that. We'll hit save. Generate our code. Right over top of the other one. Okay, let's go up to plugins and look for plot the G code. And we'll rotate it so we can see it. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Now that looks pretty decent. So we're getting even cuts on every one. Remember, we're only dealing with a 16th inch piece of material. Look at your tabbing. That's going to be a lot of material to cut out of there. So I think our tabs should be a little bit less there. So we have our tabs here, but how do we redo them? Well, first thing you got to do is go up to the eraser tool here, click on that. And one of the things to note about the eraser tool is you can use the arrow keys to cycle through to filter certain things that you want to erase. We want to erase tabs, so I'll stay on the T, and that will only erase tabs. If I wanted to erase this outside line, I could go here to outside, and then if I click on it, it'll erase the outside line. But we're just dealing with tabs right now, so let's go through and erase these tabs. Okay, and then we'll open up the parameters again, and we'll say tab depth to cut. Now remember, we're dealing with a little bit of an overcut, so let's say we want to cut 70% of the material. That might be too much, so I'll say 65. Okay, and hit OK. Now, I've redone the tab, so I have to go through and re-tab these parts. And actually, let me hit Control Z. I think I'll tab them on this side, just so they're all next to each other. Now you'll notice sometimes when you go to put a tab on there, it's not the true width that you're after. So you can actually draw several tabs side by side and it'll treat them as one if they're connected. Sometimes you can find it right away. Now if I were to put one on here, of course that's 1/8 of an inch. That is not going to be, and even around this edge it's not going to be. So you try to stay away from the corners when you're tabbing, or any small areas. Try to find the largest spot. Easy to get in there with your razor knife. Okay, I'm going to hit File, Save, and I'm just going to go generate the G code again. Hit Save, yes, right over top of the other one. Let's go up to Plugins and plot the G code. Take a look at it. We'll go ahead and angle that. Okay, so now that looks a little bit better, because if you look, if I can find a good clean one to look at, here we go. If you look at that, you can see our material is really right about here. We have a percentage overcut, so that's going to leave a little bit. We'll see how it holds up. Sometimes if you make the tabs too thin, the vacuum will pull them right out of the holder. So we'll have to kind of experiment with that one, and we can come back and redo them. Now, one of the nice features about SketchUcam is that you can select all of these at this point, and you can right click on them and make them a group, which I just did. At this point, using my move tool, I can grab this group and drag it out, leave myself a little bit of room, click and hit ×4, and you can see I wrote ×4 down there at the bottom right, and then hit enter. You can see it will copy these 4 times. Okay, now the cool thing about it is it will do the group in the order that the group was created, however they were ordered. So you can go through and we can do that again, selecting these groups, move them over, and say ×3. There, now we have tons of control horns. It'd be nice to fill up our tackle boxes to take out to the flying field. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit File, Save, and I'm going to generate the new code. This is going to take a little bit longer, but yes, I'm going to go over top. Okay, let's go look at it under Plot G code, and there they all are, ready to be cut. And that's what we'll do next. We'll go over to the flat printer and we'll set up the cut file. Okay, so first thing you're going to need is a piece of 1/2" foam to use as a spoiler board. You guys can see I've been cutting on this quite often. Basically, you take your garlight, this is what it looks like, and you tape it down to the board. You can see this was the first prototype of the control horns. We've moved on to a new set. Just take some tape, line it up to the edge, just press it on there, and the tape will come right back off. You could even put a piece across the front here if you want. And then if you go over to the flat printer, you want to make sure, first of all, that your gantry is up all the way. You can do that by moving this pulley in the back. Make sure your bit's set up. If you look down here, I have my 16th bit in here with the dust shoe on it, and I have it about a quarter of an inch sticking out, which is plenty of room there. We'll slide our foam in, and since we just threw this on there, we didn't know if it was straight or not. We're actually going to lower our pressure rollers. You can use your hands under here to lift it up a little bit while you get it kind of lined up. It doesn't have to be perfect. Get it right there. At that point, you can get ready to make the cut. First thing I like to do is lower this down by hand at my starting point. If you look down here, you'll see I'm aligning the bit just barely touching the top surface. You can find that if you go back and forth and keep lowering it a little bit, it'll leave like a scratch on there once you hit right there. So then you back it off a little bit. Then you can start your machine up, load the code, and make sure everything's zeroed, because this is your starting point. Make sure your vacuum's on. Let's get cutting. At this point, they look good. You want to go through and cut your tabs out. I've already cut them out of these. I got one more here. So grab your parts. Let's move over to build them. Okay, so here's our parts. You might want to take a razor knife and clean them up, but they look good. I'm going to go through and basically slide them together like you see here. I'm going to take a little bit of CA super glue and just glue the edge, and if you have kicker, spray it on there. Let that set to the side. We'll do that to both of them, and we'll have two nice control horns for our foamies. And of course, if you do a whole sheet, they're a whole lot cheaper than buying the plastic versions. And these are extremely light. Okay, so that's nice and strong. At this point, we'll see how it fits inside of a foamy hinge line and see how it works. I've already made one here from one of the older versions. You can see I just put it in there and put some hot glue on it. This represents our hinge line. Works extremely well. And you can cut out as many as you want, as many times as you want. So very cool, inexpensive control horn solution for your foamy airplanes. I added a couple holes here, so when you press the hot glue down, kind of like a servo, it'll pop through these holes and kind of act like a rivet. So I hope you've enjoyed the SketchUcam Flat Printer 3 control horn tutorial, and look for more to come out soon. Thank you very much for watching.